I grew up not knowing my father at all, and not not even realizing that I really even had one. But when I was 8 years old, there was a knock on our front door, and it was so weird because I'd never answered the door. But that day I did, and it was my dad. He said, "Are you Dylan?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I'm your dad." So probably when I was about 11 years old, I got into an argument with my dad, and the next thing I knew, he had me by my shirt collar. He had me by the back of my collar, and he had dragged me down a hallway, and they had 2 flights of stairs, and he threw me down these flights of stairs, and I landed into a wall. Some people have stories where they start hearing about God, or they hear about Jesus, and they think it's kind of just like too good to be true sort of thing. But in the early stages, I just think I was just so deep down low in that pit that I was just looking for anything to help pull me out. And Jesus showed up, and it was like, heck yeah, just get me out of this thing, and as I continued to hear more about him and learn about his love for me, it just felt right. It just made sense. I think the coolest thing is that as a kid growing up feeling like I didn't have an influence, now God's placed me in a position to be an influence. And even now, my story goes beyond that, because if I don't stay at Highlands, I don't meet the woman that I'm going to marry, coming up very soon. And as a child growing up, not having a dad, I get to be one now. The desire I've always had since I was a kid is to be a dad. They talk about the difference between like being a dad and being a father, like whatever that looks like, like I'm going to be there, I'm going to be present, I'm going to be around. That's one of my biggest desires. I actually reached out to my dad after I hadn't talked to him in 11 years. I was 22 years old, hadn't talked to him in 11 years. And I told him that I loved him and that I forgave him, because I have a God that loves me and that forgave me. That's God using, what Joseph said, like what you intended for bad, right? God intended for good. Like that's what that's all about and all for. And it's funny because I used to resent my dad, and I used to hate my dad, and I used to hate how I felt and what I went through. And like Liam and I's stories are so similar. I mean, almost exactly the same. And it's like God had a plan through all of that, and it hurt to go through all of that, but now you've placed me in a spot where I can be what I never had. But it's like now I'm so grateful that I went through all of that, because this wouldn't have felt so amazing if that hadn't have felt so bad.